Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, entitled Mom Loses It Because I Bought a Car She Doesn't Know How to Drive. After that, am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law's girlfriend she's boring because all she talks about is her job? And after that, you can't work with us. Okay, I won't. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to take anyone's car. Can't take your car if you don't even have one, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Entitled Mom Loses It Because I Bought a Car She Doesn't Know How to Drive. So I was talking to my husband and this story came up. He said I should share it here. To start off, this happened almost 8 years ago, so dialogue might be off a bit. So little backstory. My mom has a bad history with cars. She breaks them down within 2 years of getting them, no matter the condition they're in when she buys them. She cannot take care of them. When my older sister bought her first car at 19, my mom would borrow it for appointments and trips constantly. And by the time I was 18, you could tell she drove it. Well, I saved up money for 6 years, working hard to get enough for the car I wanted. And my grandpa even pitched in when I turned 18 and graduated high school with better grades than my sister. My grandpa went to the dealership with me and looked at Ford Focuses because that's what I wanted. Then I saw it. A 5-speed, 2-door Ford Focus, and I loved it. Why? Because my mom couldn't drive a Standard. I smiled. So we get it for a steal at $4 grand up front. Then we drive home and the following conversation ensues. We've got me, we've got entitled mom, and we've got awesome grandpa, and we've got entitled sister. Me. I got my car. They run outside to check it and are admiring it and smiling. Entitled mom. Wow. Hey, can I borrow it sometime? Me. No, you can't drive stick, Mom. Entitled Mom is shocked. What? But how are you gonna learn to drive it? Awesome Grandpa. I'm gonna teach her. Entitled Sister looks angry. She can't drive stick either, and I know she planned to use my car since Entitled Mom damaged hers. Entitled Sister. But you can't take a driving test with a Standard. They don't allow that. Grandpa. Yes, they do. Now stop whining. It's her car, not yours. Unless you two were planning to take it from her. Entitled Sister and Entitled Mom look nervous. They would never admit it to Awesome Grandpa. He'd kick them out. And since they lived with him at the time and were broke, that wasn't a good idea. Entitled Sister. Of course not. I just worry about my baby girl. That's all. Me. Sorry, but no one is driving this car but me and Awesome Grandpa. I can't wait to learn. Over the next week, they glared at me and hated that I was learning. Mom asked Grandpa to teach her at one point, and he said it was up to me since I had the only Standard car. Nope, my car. I had that car until I was 22 when my husband crashed it due to avoiding a drunk driver. Best little car I ever had. Oh, and Entitled Mom still can't drive a Standard. Edit. Oh my gosh, guys. I went to bed and you all blew this up so fast. Because it was mentioned a lot in the comments, I'm gonna put it here. Yes, I live in America, and when I said my mom was bad with cars, I did not mean gas and a mess, though she does make a mess. I meant that she actually drives like a nutcase. Examples are she rides her brakes constantly, forgets to turn the car all the way off, leaving the battery to die, doesn't change the oil, ever, expects others to repair it for free, takes shortcuts through roads that destroy your tires, drives as fast as she can over tracks, destroying the tires and the alignment. And she lets her friends in the car, and any car she drives that has no respect for her or the vehicle. My sister had stains on her passenger seat from one of the friends Mom helped. I hope this clears things up a bit on why I was so eager to get a car she couldn't drive. Also, my grandfather had a rule. Keys always went on the key rack. Spares stayed at home in case you locked yourself out of your car with your keys inside it somewhere, and he could come and get you and save us from spending money to get the keys out. I used to work with a guy whose parents were constantly using his new vehicle. They never returned it with any gas in the tank. It was always dirty. He traded it in for an even nicer one, but with a manual. He was the only person in his family that could drive it. Have you ever had someone try to use your car without permission? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Oh, I can't stand people that just take your stuff without asking. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law's girlfriend she's boring because all she talks about is her job? I'm 34, female, and my brother-in-law's girlfriend, Faye, who's 32, recently got a new job. She got her master's in 2020 and never stops talking about it. My husband, Jack, who's 36, has noticed the same thing, and he has said his brother Luke, who's 32, talks about it too. It gets on our nerves, but we tolerate it because we know how excited Faye is about her degree and now this new job, which she also won't stop talking about because, as she says, she wouldn't have gotten it if she didn't pursue her master's since it's a requirement. We had them over for dinner last night with my parents and my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Once again, Faye brings up her new job. It doesn't start for another couple of weeks. She works in education, so her contracts are based on the school calendar, and she was talking about all the things she gets to do now that she really wanted to do. She mentioned it being a life goal. I asked her what was next. She asked what I meant. I asked her about things like kids or marriage, since they've been together for 3 years now. She said she didn't want to rush into marriage or kids until she had her goals in order, but marriage was something she and Luke had been seriously discussing. I asked when she'd have time for kids or marriage with her career goals. She said she'd make time. I said kids are a lot of work. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I told her that when I was pregnant, it wasn't feasible financially or logically to continue working as a stay-at-home mom, so I quit at 26. Faye said that she doesn't want kids she can't provide for, and she likes relying on herself because so many stay-at-home moms are financially trapped when they stop working and can't leave if the marriage falls apart for whatever reason. I'll be honest, I was offended by that. I told her not all of us are trapped. She agreed, but said you never know and you should depend on yourself, even in marriage. Luke was nodding and agreeing. I said, it would also give you more to talk about other than your job. Faye asked if I had a problem with her talking about her job. I said no, but honestly, it's the only thing she seems to have that's mildly interesting. Everyone else talks about kids, home life, vacations, family, hobbies, but all you talk about is your degree, education, and this new job of yours. And I told her it was kind of boring. Faye said, then I won't bore you any further, and asked my in-laws how installing wood floors was going. We all moved on past the conversation until later that night. After Luke and Faye left, my mother-in-law told me I was rude. I told her I was telling the truth because we are all tired of hearing about it. Jack agreed, but mother-in-law said that while that was true, it's still an accomplishment no one, looked me up and down, in this family has done yet, and I seemed jealous. I said I wasn't jealous, but offended by some things she said. Mother-in-law told me I was only offended because Faye was right. Jack said she was right, but it was obvious she was directing those comments at me in a judgmental way, and my parents agree with me. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's excited, but that's not the main part. You're offended at her concerns about being a stay-at-home parent when you started it. I asked her what was next. She asked what I meant. I asked her about things like kids or marriage since they've been together for 3 years now. I asked when she'd have time for kids or marriage with her career goals. Seriously, you spent a conversation pursuing her on why her plans, note her plans, weren't good enough. This is on you. You're the jerk. Also, it's none of your business asking someone about their plans of having kids. Perhaps they tried and didn't get pregnant yet. Unless someone brings the topic up themselves, never just assume someone can and wants to. Thank you. I don't care if you're family or best friends since you were kids or strangers. It's none of your business what someone's future family plans are. OP is super judgy about it too. I used to be really vague like that too when judgy people would ask when I'm having kids because I didn't want to have the inevitable argument by telling them that I don't want to have kids. No matter what Faye's reasons and plans are, OP needs to mind her own beeswax. Edit. I'm not saying that you can't ask your friends and family about their plans for getting married or having kids. I'm saying that it can be a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and when someone gives you an answer, no matter what it is, you need to accept it. The fact that they've been together for 3 years and are not married might also be a sore spot for her. I think I'm sensitive to this discussion because my in-laws were awful to me, never took any interest in my work, my volunteer activities, my family, my hobbies, my interests. Maybe they thought I was boring because I wasn't a stay-at-home mom with kids to talk about. That sounds snarky, but it isn't. I mean it genuinely. I've never considered your point of view before. Either way, you weren't very kind to her. Kindness costs you nothing. You're the jerk. You're the jerk for so many reasons. 1. You never ask a woman when she's going to have kids. It might be a sensitive topic and it's none of your business. What if she doesn't want to have them at all? For some people, being a woman doesn't mean being a mom, and that's totally okay. 2. What she said about stay-at-home moms is true. You might not be trapped or feel that way, But it is undeniable that if you make your own money, you have a lesser chance to be trapped in a relationship. So I don't think you being offended by that statement is right. 3. She accomplished something that she feels proud of. Of course she's going to talk about it. I bet you talk about your kids because you're proud of them, just the same as she's proud of her education. Next time, maybe think through what you're going to say so you don't come across as a total jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she acted or not? Please let us know. When you meet a highly judgmental person in life, it's a good idea to avoid them like the plague. You can't work with us. Okay, I won't. I started this job in December of 2018. The team was small, 7 of us, including me. Quickly after I started, it became clear that none of them liked me at all. The bullying started off subtly, ignoring me. I was aware of what they were doing, so after a little while of this, I began mirroring their behavior. They didn't like that, and it escalated. I began to develop migraines from the stress. As much as I hadn't been bothered in the beginning, there's only so long you can go in an environment like that without some kind of effect. By this point, it had been several months. The migraines started to affect my attendance. Of course, they didn't like that either, and it continued to escalate. The manager knew all that was happening, but nothing changed. Well, anyway, I wanted another baby, so my husband and I decided to use the job for what it was worth. A nice 9-month-long paid maternity leave. So about 1 year after I started the job, I became pregnant. Then came my birthday. I was expecting nothing, of course, but I got a card and some chocolates from the girls, aka the only one with a conscience signed it from the girls because she didn't want me to get anything, and no, they'd flat out refused. Put it down to pregnancy hormones, but when she gave it to me, I of course knew it was only from her and cried my little eyes out. This was a Thursday. The next day, I asked my manager to work alone. I covered all of the wards. I was a hospital phlebotomist, by myself while they stayed in the clinic. When I was done, I helped out the nursing assistants in the clinic across to avoid them. Later, my manager came down to see me and discuss. Apparently, they had complained to her that I had not helped them at all, even though it was so busy that they'd have to get the NAs to help, which was a lie since I was with the NAs all day. They never had to go help. I explained to the manager what had happened and that I just needed some space as the alternative would have been to go home. I began crying again. Pregnancy and the inevitable stress of being ganged up on for over a year by 5 people every day just gets to you after a while. The manager told me to take the following week off, free of charge, i.e. she'd not write me up. When I came back the following Monday, I wasn't okay, but I was better than I had been. I wondered what my reception would be, and lo and behold, it was horrible. A whole confrontation went down, where one of them had the audacity to ask me if I had considered their feelings when I told our manager I didn't want to work with them on that Friday. I knew I had turned some kind of mental corner because I laughed in her face, finally stood up for myself instead of just ignoring it, and then walked off to go do my job, and I didn't feel bad about it. This was in December 2019. At this point, I was about 6 weeks pregnant, and this is where my revenge began. I was pretty unwell through my pregnancy and so heavily protected by UK laws and by the hospital's very own maternity policies, I wasn't making much of an effort to go to work when I didn't feel 100% okay doing so. Needless to say, I had quite the chunk of time off between December 2019 and early 2020. Fast forward to March 2020, and as you all know, lockdown was in full swing, and we were days away from a nationwide lockdown. Of course, ordinarily, this wouldn't affect me because I worked in a hospital. But this is where, finally, my malicious compliance comes in. It was a late March Monday morning, and I was in unusually high spirits on the way into my shift. My morning sickness was finally starting to abate, and there had been no drama for a little while. And I did actually really like my job when I was allowed to just do it. So I was in quite a good mood, and I even greeted my jerk colleagues cheerily. Well, I was greeted with a sharp, "You're not coming in here." I was confused, unsure as to what I could have possibly done over the last 4 days that I hadn't even seen this woman. So after asking her what she meant was she and our other colleagues didn't want to go on the wards, so they had just stuck to the clinic and had planned to send me there instead. We're meant to do the wards first, and they start an hour before I did. Well, my manager and I had already agreed I'd not go on the wards due to lockdown and my pregnancy. I sensed danger and went to call my manager. I let her know what had transpired, and we agreed that I'd just find a spare room in the clinic and work in there, so I did. Not even 30 minutes later, and lo and behold, grumpy colleagues come storming over to me. demanding to know why I didn't share the whole story with her. I say, "What story? There is no story." She says the agreement between our manager. I said, "What business is it of hers?" So she yells at me, "Well, you can't work with us." I snap and tell her to sort her attitude out and walk off from her. Well, I've had enough. I go to see my manager to tell her so. And when I get there, after telling her what was said, I say, since this colleague likes to act like my supervisor so much, how about I finally take some direction from her? I won't work with her or any of them. I'm done. My manager not only agrees, but tells me to shield instead, preserving my pay, fully paid sick leave, and my paid time off, which took me up to the mat leave start dinner. Winner. Which took me up to my maternity leave start date. Winner. And the kicker? They were stuck short-staffed for a full year during lockdown because my job was legally protected until I officially left it, which was not until March of 2021. So I walked out mid-shift, left them high and dry, and in the words of my manager, they brought it on themselves. Edit. Also a note to the victim blamers who seem to be making their way in. It's fine if you don't believe I was being bullied or that it was somehow my fault. I know what happened, and I know how I dealt with it day to day. I don't divulge a great deal of details on what they did to me, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I did my best with the situation I was in, and that's good enough for me. Please educate yourself on bullying. Just curious how you could be so unlikable by so many people. There's something missing here. OP. A question I must have asked myself every day for a long time until I realized bullying isn't about the victim, it's about the bully. There was nothing I could do because it wasn't something I was doing. And you know what? Even if I was doing something that caused me to be incredibly unlikable, it doesn't excuse bullying. So no, there's nothing missing except more details on how they bullied me. I don't know you or your colleagues, but in my experience, when someone says none of their colleagues likes them and claims the entire team is bullying them, more often than not, it's you that's the actual problem. They likely feel that they don't want anything to do with you, as you likely make working with them bad. Take a look at how you work with others maybe. OP. It certainly crossed my mind and was a question I asked myself daily while working there. What am I doing wrong? This alongside various efforts to get along with them, improve situations, etc. Additionally, others did like me. We worked with loads of people regularly. It was just the core team that didn't like me, and never had any issues like this in any other jobs I've had. Not to say I was perfect. I'm sure there are things I could have done better, things I've reflected on since, etc. But I know I did my best with the situation I was in, and I know it didn't warrant their behavior towards me. I've had to allow that to be good enough for me so that I could heal. Bullying like this happens, however unbelievable it sounds. Have you ever been bullied at work? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for kicking out my boyfriend's 19-year-old daughter? My boyfriend of 3 years moved into my home 3 weeks ago after his lease went up and he was unable to renew with the price hike they expected. His rent was $1,600 for a 2-bedroom, and upon signing a new lease, they said it would now be $2,400. I have a 3-bedroom home and one son, who's 11. Both his room and my room have an attached bathroom. The guest room does not. We've lived here for 5 years, and I bought it last year. My boyfriend has a 19-year-old daughter named Jess who visits him on the weekends and lives at home with her mother. Literally never had any issues with her up until my boyfriend moved in. When he moved in, Jess started becoming this little snob who had demand after demand that she fully expected me to meet. Like, she wanted me to kick my son out of his room so she could have the room with an attached bathroom, stating that a boy didn't need a bathroom as much as a girl did. When I said absolutely not, she got extremely rude and condescending whenever she was in my home. She also tried parenting my son on more than one occasion, telling him what he can and cannot watch on the TV, what he can and cannot snack on, etc. There have been times when he's tried talking to us and Jess will butt in and say something about how kids are so annoying. If I speak up to her, she says, "I don't believe I was talking to you," or roll her eyes at me. Bold for someone who doesn't pay any rent or food costs to be staying in my home. I told her father last week that either he gets a handle on his adult kid or she was getting booted to the curb. He immediately starts telling me I need to give her time because this is an adjustment for her and that apparently she's having a hard time at her mom's house due to them arguing all the time. Gee, I wonder why. I told him that wasn't my problem and that at my house, me and my son were not going to be treated like this because she can't control her emotions and wants to take her resentment out on us. He said he would talk with her. His talk did nothing at all. In fact, she confronted me about it and said,
I don't know what game you're playing here, but respect is earned, not given, and I will not be granting you respect until you prove to me you deserve it.
She then walks to the living room where my son was watching TV and takes the remote from him and tells him to move. At this point, I go in and immediately tell her to get out of my house. She tells me she isn't going anywhere because her dad lives here, so I end up calling her uncle, who is a police officer, and have her escorted from my house after she collected all of her belongings. My boyfriend says I crossed a line, so I told him he can leave too. He currently isn't speaking to me, locked away in my bedroom. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Remove your boyfriend too. He's not on your mortgage or house deed. He's a guest there at your discretion. If he's going to act this way, he's shown you who he is. Get rid of him before he harasses you or your son. Not the jerk at all. Your boyfriend has been in your house less than 30 days. Tell him to get off your bed, pack his things, and get out now. Then make him your ex. The apple didn't fall too far from the tree. You know exactly where his entitled daughter got her attitude from. Am I the jerk for having my husband drive me back to shore when I wasn't allowed to fish? I, 32, female, rented a boat 2 weeks ago to go fishing. My husband suggested we celebrate his birthday at the same time, which is coming right up because he loves boating. I had no problem with it, but the whole rental was originally so I could fish. He invited our mutual friend Greg along, which was no big deal. But it soon turned into Greg driving everywhere and telling us to relax and have a few beers. He refused to sit in one spot for more than 10 to 15 minutes, so I wasn't able to fish at all. Every time I would have a line out for more than 5 minutes, he would ask if we were ready to move on to the next spot. At one point, even bringing us to a crowded sandbar beach where I obviously wasn't able to fish. Roughly 3 hours in, I asked if they could stop driving around so I could do some fishing, and he immediately stopped the boat, no questions asked. But it got really awkward after that. Greg making comments about how he wished he liked to fish so he could understand the hype of sitting in one single spot while on a boat because he can't stand it. Heavy sighing and pacing the boat, etc. I know for a fact he wasn't trying to be a jerk. He truly just couldn't stand sitting in one spot so that I could fish. So my husband at this point was getting uncomfortable with how awkward Greg was unintentionally making things and said, "Well, babe, are you about ready to move to the next spot?" At this point, I just asked them to bring me back to shore. Both of them started protesting and apologizing, saying it was fine and we could stay there longer. But at this point, I was so over the entire trip because I didn't get to fish more than 25 minutes at this point. They bring me back to shore, still apologizing, and Greg saying he was sorry for ruining my fishing trip, and I just said it was fine and walked off to my car without saying another word to them. Well, after my husband got home, he was really quiet, and when I asked him why, he said that it was a bummer that I chose to leave instead of just enjoying the boat for what it was. He said he understands my frustrations, but he couldn't understand why I took it to a level of ruining my entire day and leaving him on the boat that was meant for us. Greg paid me half of the cost I spent to make up for it too, so now I'm wondering if I'm really in the wrong considering the whole point of me getting the boat was to go fishing. Am I the jerk? ETA. Both Greg and my husband knew I rented the boat to fish. My husband even brought his fishing pole, but didn't end up using it. Not the jerk. Inviting Greg defeated the entire purpose. Lesson learned, I hope. The boat wasn't for us, like he mentioned, because Greg was also there. I would understand if it were two couples, but a married couple plus husband's friend is just strange and awkward. Plus, he hijacked your fishing trip. He could have said, or asked, to just enjoy this weekend with him during his birthday and go fishing another time. It doesn't have to be awkward. My significant other and I have been together for 16 years. We've done camping trips, mini vacations, or day trips with one extra person many times. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. We make a point to be welcoming and chill. That being said, Greg took over the trip, which is rude since he was invited along and didn't take part in planning. If either OP or her hubby knew Greg was going to want to drive around the whole time, maybe he wouldn't have gotten an invite. Also, if I rented a boat, I'd be the only one driving. I wouldn't be risking anyone being dumb and costing me big bucks paying for damage. So if Greg just took over driving without asking, he's double the jerk. Not the jerk. You wanted to fish and rented a boat. You weren't able to fish. Letting Greg do the day the way he wanted to do was a mistake. He was your guest and should have behaved like one. Am I the jerk for completely cutting my wife off financially? I know the title sounds bad, but let me explain. My wife and I have been together for a total of 8 years. We have a 5-year-old daughter. When my wife was a kid, she grew up with a kid named Kelly, who was pretty much a throwaway. My wife's family took Kelly in when she was 9. During the 8 years of our relationship, Kelly constantly pops up for a while and then randomly disappears for months on end. About 2 months ago, Kelly resurfaced after her boyfriend was sent to prison on serious charges. Kelly also has a lengthy record. My wife gave me a super sob story trying to get me to agree to let Kelly come stay with us. I was firm on my decision, but my wife went ahead and let her occupy our guest bedroom anyways. I immediately placed our kid with my mother-in-law and told my wife she was not coming back home until Kelly was gone. Kelly stayed with us for 11 days until I had to kick her out. A week ago, I was looking at our bank statement for something totally unrelated. I noticed several Walmart charges for $100 to $300 each, all made the same day. I thought that was odd. I looked over our credit card statement and found a $570 charge for a local motel. Immediately I knew. I confronted my wife. She quickly admitted to the hotel and let me know that $570 was for the first 2 weeks. She would be getting billed for another 2 weeks shortly. On the Walmart charges, she acted shocked, quite clueless. She actually made the suggestion that perhaps Kelly was able to retrieve the card info from the motel and somehow used it at Walmart. However, the bank-issued debit card and credit card are 2 entirely different entities not connected to each other. The total, including the 2-week motel stay, came to $1,367. I then informed my wife I was canceling her cards, all of them, and filing a police report against Kelly since my wife had repeatedly said she didn't make those Walmart charges. Soon, my wife remembered everything. She bought Kelly clothes, shoes, food, toiletries. Then she withdrew cash several times because of Walmart's limit. She had to make small purchases and ask for cash back. Luckily, the credit card was canceled before the next motel charge hit. My wife was okay about me canceling all her cards until she learned she wasn't getting them back. I made it clear, it's not about her spending the money. She's a stay-at-home mom, and I do believe it's her money too. But she lied to me. Aside from that, she's also enabling Kelly. And she never bothered to discuss this with me. She's now accusing me of being financially controlling, since now basically she can't go anywhere unless I'm there to pay. Her mom told her to get a job and get a private bank account that I won't have access to if I want to play this game. I started thinking that I might be the jerk because I'm realizing my wife feels that I'm punishing her. It might not seem that way, but it's not my intentions. Not the jerk. Her mom is right. If she wants to blow money that she didn't earn while not consulting you, she can get a job. You have a 5-year-old and a $1,000 motel bill on a single salary household is tough. Your wife needs to get her priorities straight before she messes up and loses her family. Absolutely not the jerk. However, I completely disagree with your "she can get a job" comment. She has a job. She's a stay-at-home mom. The problem is that she didn't discuss anything with OP about their shared finances before she unilaterally gave her friend $1,367. If everything in this story was exactly the same, except that it was OP who gave his friend over $1,000 without informing his wife, he would absolutely be the jerk for the exact same reason, even though he was the one that earned the money. She can get a job? So being a stay-at-home mom isn't a job now? It is, but it's not one with an income. Stay-at-home parents should charge what daycares do then. Not the jerk. Your reasons are valid. Your wife has proven that she cannot be trusted with unlimited access to the family's finances. She has also proven that she cares more about enabling Kelly than she does her own kid. At this point, I would tell her that her options are immediate marriage counseling, immediate individual counseling, cutting Kelly out of her life completely and getting a job to repay what she basically stole from the family, or you can file for divorce and pursue majority custody based on her favoring Kelly over your kid. Everyone sucks here. Cutting your spouse off from all financial resources isn't okay, especially if she's staying with your kid every day. Emergencies happen, and you can't always be available to pay for things. You two need to discuss the situation and get on the same page. She shouldn't be paying for her friends' living accommodations without telling you, but you're punishing her for that, rather than trying to find a solution. Everyone sucks here. I get your predicament, and it totally sucks, but have you discussed setting up a secondary account for her? Like a portion of your earnings could go into a spending account that you're comfortable with her lighting on fire if she wants, and it won't cause any financial stress. I think there's obviously some unresolved issues with Kelly and your wife that need to be addressed, but that's on her and them to figure out. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If Reddit Boy did something like this, You'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for kicking out my mother and sister? I'm 21, female. I own my own place. I've lived here for a while now, and I loved my own peace, living by myself with no kids or a spouse. My mom, who's 41, wasn't the best when I was growing up. She would bring guys in and out of the home all the time. I'm glad nothing ever happened to me, but it gave me a bad view for her once I grew up, and not a good relationship along with it. I have a sister, 22, who's disabled physically and mentally. I grew up with her, but it was extremely hard to form a relationship with her. I had to take care of her a lot growing up, because my own mom wouldn't do any of it due to mom wilding around. My sister and I shared a room growing up, and I hated every second of it, if I'm going to be honest. My mom has been renting for a place to live, and since a few months ago, she can't live there anymore. My sister still lives with my mom, and my mom doesn't take care of her actively. She pays for a caregiver. My mom guilt-tripped me into letting her and my sister live with me temporarily for a month. I eventually said yes. It was fine for the first few days. My mom and sister have been living here now for 3 months. My mom said only 1 month. I have to work a lot, so I'm barely there anyways. But when I have a day off, I hate every second of it. I know my sister cannot help it, that she makes noises, a lot of noises, loud noises. It's like I can hear it everywhere. The caregiver still cares for her, but it's like having a complete stranger in my home. Long story short, on my day off, after hearing everything and the noises and tantrums, I went insane and snapped. I told my mom she has to leave. She refused to leave at first, but eventually she did. The last thing she told me was, "You're supposed to be grateful that I gave you a home to live in, and you can't give that back? You're a jerk and always have been." I eventually told her to just leave, and my mom got my sister and they both left. I feel like I'm the complete jerk because of the fact that I told her to leave just because I was tired of my sister, even though she cannot help it at all. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for taking the time to comment. I have no new news about my mom or sister. I haven't spoken to her since she left. I haven't been able to reply to comments because I've been insanely busy today, but I just now read most of the comments. I appreciate it, and I started crying at some comments because they hit a soft spot for me. I appreciate the comments you guys left. Thank you. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.